Thursday, 28th of March. First item on the agenda, apologies for absence. Everyone is here. Second, declarations of interest. Any declarations of interest? No. So we'll go on to the third item of the agenda, which is the estimated revenue budget outturn 23-24, and Paul Parsons will take us through this paper. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you, Councillor O'Donnell. The report monitors the revenue, income and expenditure against the budget for the period ended 31st of December 2023. On the basis of the latest information, taking into account the projected council tax collection, a year-end operational underspend of £2.617 million, or 0.8% of the annual budget, is forecast on general services. This variance reflects a continuation of trends set out in previous reports. The underspend on general services is before the application of additional support for the HSCP service from the East Renfrewshire COVID reserve. The Cabinet agreed support of £687,000 from this reserve during November. Effectively, this increases the total year-end underspend from £2.6 million to £3.3 million. The HRA reserve is forecasting an overspend of £172,000, which will be met from the HRA reserves. The reasons for variances for both General Fund and HRA are set out in the report. This position outlined relates to normal operating budgets only. We also expect to meet over £7 million of ongoing COVID pressures in the current year. However, these will be covered by utilising the earmarked reserve, which reflects COVID government grants received in previous years. This is the final budgetary monitoring report for the current year. However, figures still may change, for example, the finalisation of staff costs, etc., pension costs resulting from service restructures. A further report on the outturn position will be submitted once the draft accounts for 23-24 have been finalised. The Cabinet is invited to approve the budget adjustments shown, note the current financial position, and note the level of financial pressures being met from the COVID reserve. If there are any questions, Margaret, Barbara and myself will do our best to answer. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Paul. I'll open it up to questions. Any questions? You happy? You satisfied? I've got one small question on planning and building control. There's an under recovery of 245, so I'm just wondering what is generating that. Is it reduced volumes or a backlog that we're not able to reach?
I would confirm that it's down to a downturn in the numbers of planning applications coming in and the nature of those. There is a review, though, of planning standards fees nationally, and that should rectify the position going forward in the new financial year, and we should be able to generate enough to cover the cost of the service. I think at this stage, in terms of the delivery of the LDP, that's pretty natural that there does start to wane in terms of the numbers of major applications coming in. And we're always looking at the future of income for planning, and we are fully staffed at present, and we are able to handle and process applications on time. And again, in terms of the nature of the planning applications, can really impact on the resources available. If you have a number of major applications, they do take up substantial resource, whereas lots of minor applications, again, can take up a lot of resource but don't generate a lot of income. So it's always a balance in terms of trying to cover the cost of the service with the income generated.
Thanks very much for that response. Any other questions on this paper? Again, this is the final one. We've seen a lot of these variances and issues bubble up during the year, so a lot of the narrative here is familiar to everyone at the Cabinet. So thank you very much, Margaret and Finance team, for preparation of this report. So are we happy to agree the recommendations in this report? Are you happy? Great, thank you very much. Moving on to the next item on the agenda, item number 4, trading under best value. And Barbara will be taking this paper. Thank you, Barbara.
Thank you, Leader. Under the Local Government in Scotland Act 2003, the Council is required to consider its trading operations and on an annual basis determine those which should be regarded as significant. This report reviews the activities of the financial year 23-24. To be classed as significant, the trading operation can only apply to external trading and to those activities that are not statutory. In addition, the service has to be provided in a competitive environment and the recharge has to include an element of profit. In reviewing an operation's classification, further tests of significance require to be undertaken using financial and non-financial criteria. Having considered these conditions, the results of the review is that, in line with last year, the Council has no significant trading operations in the current year. The Cabinet is invited to approve the position for 23-24.
Thank you, Barbara. Any questions from Cabinet on this? Thanks, Barbara. It's a very straightforward report, very similar to what we saw this time last year, and effectively no change from where we were. So is Cabinet happy to agree this report? Thank you very much. Thanks, Barbara. So moving on to the next item of the agenda, which is item number 5, Amendment to Charging for Services 24-25, and this is being taken by Katrina.
Thank you, Chair. The purpose of this report is to advise Cabinet of an administrative error which occurred during the charging for services review process for 24-25 in relation to burial ground services, and it seeks approval of the amended fees and charges for the service. And I would apologise to Cabinet for the error that was made. We presented the annual review of fees and charges to Cabinet on the 14th of December for approval. It has subsequently been noticed that the Council's recommended 4.4% rise for burial ground service was applied to an incorrect version of the 23-24 fees and charges. So to rectify this administrative error, a secondary exercise using the correct figures has been undertaken, and the new charges are in Appendix 1 of the report. And I'm asking Cabinet to approve the amended list and charges as set out in Appendix 1.
Thanks very much, Katrina. Any questions on that? Councillor Anderson.
So this is a correction to a previous Cabinet paper, but has it had any impact on members of the public at all? It's for future, isn't it? It's not something that's happened.
It would apply from the 1st of April. The new charge would apply from the 1st of April, so no impact to date.
Thanks.
Okay, thanks, Katrina, for alerting us to that error and the adjustment for it. So thank you. Are we happy to agree this paper? Are we agreed? Yeah, thank you. Moving on to the next item on the agenda, which is item number 6, East Renfrewshire Parking Management Strategy, and Katrina will be taking this paper as well. Thank you, Katrina.
Thank you, Chair. So this report is seeking support for the preparation of a parking management strategy that would include the introduction of parking charges in appropriate locations across East Renfrewshire. The Council has responsibility of parking sites across the local authority area, and this accounts for about 2,000 spaces. Currently, we have no assessment of on-street car parking capacity to date, and feasibility to assess the viability of introduction of charges and extensive engagement working is required to be undertaken to determine which locations could be considered for charging. A DPE scheme is in place in East Renfrewshire. This scheme has operated at a loss for several years due to increased operating and staff costs, and these costs have been exacerbated by COVID-19 restrictions. At present, there are no charges for either off-street public car parks or on-street car parking in East Renfrewshire, and this differs from most other local authorities that have DPE in Scotland. 21 local authorities have active DPE, and of those, 19 have charging structures in place. The Cabinet previously considered a report in January 2017, but agreed at that time not to proceed with parking charges. So to allow for the preparation of a new parking management strategy, an extensive programme of work requires to be undertaken to inform the new strategy and related policies and plans, and these are set out at paragraph 9 of the report. We need to assess current parking demand and driver behaviour. We need to explore ways of increasing access to parking in town town centres, and particularly where there's pressurised areas. We need to assess which locations would be exempt from parking charges. We need to calculate how much income could be generated through parking charges. We need to calculate the costs and the operational considerations, and we need to engage with an extensive range of stakeholders, and those are listed, and others that will be identified. And furthermore, identify opportunities for increased active travel and car use. If members are agreed, the budget requirements for this work would be considered by the Budget Strategy Group and brought back to Cabinet in due course for approval. The strategic and feasibility work will assess the viability of these proposals and inform the recommendations that will be brought back to Cabinet at the end of the year, March 25. The potential for the introduction of future parking charges would help to fund the DPE scheme. It would help maintain car parking provision and would support investment in the infrastructure requirements. So the Cabinet is asked to approve the undertaking of the programme of work to inform and develop a new parking management strategy, the related policies and plans, to confirm their support in principle for the introduction of parking charges, and to note that a parking management strategy and associated recommendations will be brought for Cabinet consideration by March 2025. And I'm happy to take some questions, and I've got John, Marley in attendance and Michaela on the screen as well to help.
Thank you very much, Katrina. Open up to questions. Councillor Anderson.
Thank you, Chair. You mentioned the paper, obviously, from 2017, and I don't know to what extent, I've not seen that, how much it was looked into then, but it was chosen not to do so. So I'm assuming that potentially there's already a quite high level of awareness of the issues and, you know, all the things, different things that you mentioned about what we have to take into consideration. So obviously the consultation will help to potentially confirm whether the mood has changed amongst East Renfrewshire residents. But I believe they might be receptive to this because they know the challenges that we face. But do you feel that already you have the framework for a strategy potentially already in place because of previous papers?
My colleagues can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the previous report very much focused on car parks and charging within car parks. And obviously we are now bringing forward a proposal for on-street car parking. So I think the approach taken would be very different. We're keen, obviously, particularly in our high streets, to make those as accessible as possible. And where appropriate, there is long stay car parking that people are directed to park there and walk a bit further to access shops and leave. Particularly for workers going into the town that are parking all day, to leave local and nearby space available for those wanting to use the shops and businesses in our town centres. And I'm not sure that the previous work in 2017 considered that. So I think this will be a more extensive programme of work.
Yeah. One of the weaknesses of 2017 when we looked at it then, we never considered displaced parking in any great detail. So obviously residents had concerns if they were, were pushing cars off certain roads that get into their street, and what action and potentially would we have a permanent parking scheme for residents, and that in itself we need a lot of back room support as well. So that wasn't fully considered, but there was other, this time we're looking to do a full comprehensive study on it.
Just a secondary sort of question leading on from that. With regards to, I know that, for example, with the penalty notices, we use like the Glasgow systems back-end office, to help process that. Was that also considered, or is it? How do you feel about that in terms of would we have to set up our own IT systems to be able to do this, or could we outsource?
Yeah, no, we're currently working with Glasgow City Council, so they do our back office support and obviously charges for that. Something going forward is we can look elsewhere to see if we can get better support. That's a question or an area we need to look at. But I think for just now, that would be the expected way to go. We'll still need that support, and we still need the support of the wardens, etc., for enforcing.
Great, thanks.
Any other questions? This is a very important piece of work. Consultation will be critical. and getting the right voices in that consultation, or as many voices as possible. I'm just also wondering how we engage members through this process and what are the steps in that, because obviously it's very emotive, it's highly localised, so ward members will be interested in what's going on in their wards, and we'll be getting feedback from local residents. So I'm wondering how we engage members through this process and whether we use the budget strategy group or whatever. So thoughts on that would be welcome.
I'm happy to come back on that as we develop the programme of work in terms of the various stages of the project development, and when it's appropriate to report back to Cabinet and when it's appropriate to involve ward members. But absolutely, we appreciate that ward members are at the front end of this, and we need to bring them with us on the process. So that would be built into our plans around engagement and consultation. And again, keen to work with other local groups, particularly in our town centres, our local businesses. We're lucky that we have 3 business improvement districts, and they'll be very important partners as we work through this. We have discussed setting up a stakeholder group to be involved in the design and the development as we work through this. So that's something that the team are going to give consideration to as part of the development of the proposals.
Great, thanks for that. You know, March 25 is not that long away, really, so there's a lot of work to be done and a lot of consulting to be done through that process. So I don't envy you in your task whatsoever, but it's an important task and one that we need to get on with. So thank you very much for that. So if there are no, are we all agreed on the recommendations in this paper? Thank you very much, all agreed. So moving on to the next item on the agenda, which is item number 7, Additional Capital Resurfacing Works Programme 24-25. And who's taking this? Is it Andy? Andy Corrie, please. Thank you.
Thanks, Leader. Since 2019, the Road Service has received an additional £15 million in capital to improve the road condition across the authority. This has enabled 172 sections of carriageway and 57 sections of footway to be resurfaced over that 5 years. The Council has now committed a further £17.5 million over the next 5 years to continue that work, and in particular to target C-class and residential roads to improve the Council's roads condition indicator. Appendix B highlights the roads and footway schemes that have been chosen for approval. Schemes are chosen on a number of criteria, including the structural condition of the road or footway, the usage of the road or footway, cost of maintenance for the previous 3 years, number of complaints received regarding the road, footway, and geographical spread. 8 footway schemes and 51 carriageway schemes can be undertaken in 2024-25 through the additional funding, and will be delivered through a combination of both private contractors and their own roads contracting unit. A further 6 carriageway resurfacing schemes will also be undertaken on our main arterial routes and were approved as part of the recent budget setting process. Works will begin in April, subject to the approval of this report.
Thank you very much, Andy. Any questions, Councillor Pragnell?
Thanks for that report, Andy. It's great to see that the extra
Oh, there's mic stuff turning.
Oh, sorry.
Okay. It's great to see that the extra capital investment in the roads is being utilised, and I also want to thank your team for liaising with communications and getting that list out into the public domain. I know when I was at a community council last week, it was being discussed there, and they are very grateful for the roads being done and the resurfacing works in Ward 4. Thank you for going into a wee bit of detail about how roads are prioritised, because there does seem to be still a bit of confusion amongst residents. I don't know if, again, maybe working with comms you could put out how you actually prioritise. And the complaint I think we all get is, how do we report roads works? I know certainly in the street I grew up, I got a lot of emails about a pothole that is being dealt with this week, but there's still a bit of confusion about how people actually report it on the website and whether it does actually get done. So if you could.
Yeah, we've got good response times to our pothole repairs these days, so anything that comes through is seen to fairly quickly. We've developed some digital systems to help improve that process, and we're working on a current PIP, which is a ability for the residents to go directly onto a map and pinpointing the pothole, which will smooth things even further, but that's a piece of work we're developing at the moment. In terms of how we pick our roads, the roads inspectors, as they go through their daily duties, will mark up roads in all these criteria of different weightings, and we build up a picture through the year of our red, amber and green roads and pick the top ones, as it were.
Any other questions, Councillor Anderson?
Can I lead on a bit from that, Andy? In terms of, I have noticed, I'm assuming we obviously monitor the main routes as well throughout, and if there's a situation where there's degradation, if that's the right word, in a particular section, I noticed, like, for example, outside Giffnut Bowling Club, there was quite a major section there on the main road had to be replaced. Does that then potentially, if we have to deal with that, then impact this, the list that you have here and the priorities, or do you have resources to cope with both?
We have £200,000 for survey or carriage repairs as we go through, so that's out with that, so we keep that spare, and we'll do some resurfacing works beyond that if there's other areas that need out with that list that we've approved.
Is that a separate team, or do you have...
It's be our own RC
so you can work
on do that work, yeah.
Ideal, great.
Yes.
Andy, thanks for this report. It's really welcome. Actually, it is following on from the other issues in communication. When this was publicised on our Facebook account, there was huge interest in what was happening, and not surprisingly, people more interested in the roads that are not being done than the roads that are being done. I wonder if there's any way we can give a line of sight to what comes next after this, and what are the priorities to help residents understand that their concerns are being listened to, but we're not going to get there till 2 or 3 years' time, because even knowing that is helpful. And secondly, in terms of we've got a schedule for the year, do you update it and announce quarterly what's going to happen in the next quarter again, just to keep residents more informed as to when things are going to happen in their streets?
Not normally, but we could look at doing that. We've obviously started pre-planning the list in the hope that this is approved, so we would hopefully be able to get that set out, and I can maybe tie up with the communications and look at a quarterly list, as we sometimes have to put things off because of schools and etc. So that's some reason that we delay some works if they're near schools. So yeah, but that's something we can certainly look into.
That would be very helpful, very welcome, and I do accept that there has to be changes in the schedule through the time, and I'm sure residents would understand that as well, but having greater visibility as to when it's happening in their area, and even if it's not going to be for 2.
We hope to bring, once the new RCI, Roads Condition Indicators, released, we hope to bring a bigger report explaining how that works and future events and how we might better be able to programme all our roads based on where the issues are in terms of red and ambers.
So if we're happy with this report, can we agree this report as recommended? Thank you very much, Andy. So moving on to the final item on the agenda, which is item number 8, which is the Clarkston Active Travel Bridge. And Katrina will be taking this. Thank you, Katrina.
Thank you, Chair. So this report is seeking approval to directly appoint Network Rail to design a new active travel bridge across the railway at Clarkston. The department is currently leading the development of the Clarkston to Muirend active corridor, and a key constraint is the existing crossings of the railway at Clarkston. A feasibility study conducted in 2021 concluded that these constraints could be overcome by constructing a new foot cycle bridge adjacent to the current road bridge. The Council has worked with Network Rail to prepare a development services agreement which would see Network Rail lead the project. The report is seeking Cabinet approval for an exemption to standard procurement procedures to allow East Renfrewshire Council to directly award the contract to Network Rail. And they would carry out the full design package of a new walking, wheeling, cycling bridge across the railway at Clarkston. The justification to proceed with the direct award is set out in paragraph 7 of the report. and this is as follows. The delivery of the detailed design activity by the Council would require access to the railway to conduct the various investigation surveys. This can be a mandatory and lengthy process, and if the Council were to do this, it would present as a risk to delay in the project. Secondly, Network Rail electrification of the Glasgow to East Kilbride railway line is a live project, and an agreement with Network Rail would allow for that seamless working between our project and Network Rail's project. And finally, Network Rail themselves do require to improve station accessibility, and this proposal would support that, and it will allow a more appealing and accessible step-free access to Platform 2 at the station. Full funding for the project has been awarded by Transport Scotland. There is extensive consultation that's been ongoing for the development of the Clarkston to Muirend active corridor, and that will continue in spring via in-person events and the Commonplace platform. And finally, legal services have been consulted, and they have agreed that there is a justification to direct award this contract under Public Contract Scotland. So, in terms of the recommendation, it is recommended that Cabinet A approves in terms of clause 23.6 of Council's standing orders relating to contracts an exemption from contract standing orders on the grounds of the special circumstances to enable East Renfrewshire Council to appoint Network Rail, and B, authorise the Head of Place to approve and sign the service level agreement between the Council and Network Rail.
Thank you very much, Katrina. Councillor Pragnell.
Thank you, and I do support the principle of this project. I know certainly accessibility is a real issue at Clarkston train station. Can you give me any idea of how long the design process is likely to take? I know we've not. Hopefully, we will be if this is approved today, we will be signing the service agreement. So, is there any timescale? I know it's a very big project that will require surveying of the site.
Yeah, I think we're into 25, 26 before delivery. Thornley Bank Bridge, for example, is going to kick off soon with the closure of that. They're doing the bridge deck there. This one, but we're at the detailed design stage, REBA stage 4. So, yeah, but I think we're looking at delivery late 25.
Any other questions on this paper? Councillor Anderson.
Just in terms of the active travel corridors, and I can see how this would, people coming from the Netherley direction south up to the toll, because obviously the existing bridge is very, very narrow. Will the pavement be taken away there? Is one question.
Sorry, I missed that.
Would the pavement be taken away?
No. Problem with it is the narrow footway, the one way, and what they're having to do with the electrification of the line, as well as dropping the line under the bridge, they are actually, to accommodate the overheads, they are having to build a 6-foot high parapet wall, and that situation is obviously, it's not very good to have the 1 metre wide and 6-foot thing. So whether that actually comes away and we stop pedestrians using it, I don't know. I think that'll probably be an option to continue with pedestrians, but a safer route for bikes and pedestrians would be the bridge.
Well, also, so I can see also how the people coming down from Busby Road, from East Kilbride direction as well, potentially. I'm trying to get my head around the cycle routes and what have you, but what I'm concerned about is more Mearns Road, and it's a very difficult junction, and I don't envy the task to actually the legacy of previous road design, etc., has left us with this situation. It's just to look the bigger picture in terms of how this bridge will be accessible from all routes.
Yeah, so we're actually probably moving on this quicker than we intended, because we're still looking at that route overall, but it's just because we're taking advantage of electrification of the line that Network Rail are doing. Transport Scotland are funded both Network Rail and active travel, and we took it back to them and said, well, this is, rather than have the disruption of us getting in a second time to put in a bridge or do whatever we need for the active travel, we took the opportunity to do it all the time effectively. So this is probably a wee bit ahead of, the rest of the work on that corridor.
And is the existing footbridge getting taken away as well?
Yes, down into the car park, that'll be getting replaced as part of the works as well.
So are we content with the recommendations in this report? Agreed? Okay, so that's the end of Cabinet meeting. So all that leaves me to do is to wish everyone a happy Easter, and don't eat too many Easter eggs over the weekend. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.